Hey everybody, welcome to CSE Live. I'm Patrick Finnegan, producer of CSE Live here at Black Spectacles, and I'm joined with architect Marissa Yee, who's going to host a mock exam on the California Supplemental Exam focused on schematic design and discretionary approval. If you're joining us for the first time, Black Spectacles is a leader in ARE prep. At Black Spectacles, we work with learning scientists and architects to ensure you're studying the right content and that you retain it so you can pass on the first try. We've built everything that you need to pass the CSE with our brand new CSE course, including new video lectures with motion graphics and 3D animation, practice exams that are as close to the real thing as you can get, and unlike anyone else, with our Pass the CSE guarantee, in the unlikely event that you don't pass your exams, we'll pay for you to retake the exam. You'll also receive access to our deck of flashcards, which you can customize, and quizzes after each video lecture section, and detailed content on the hardest parts of the exam. Lastly, our guided study process organizes all of your study material into a daily study plan, showing you what to study each day that you can customize to align with your exam date. And all of this is built upon a curriculum that ensures you're learning the right content, and they work all together with our custom-built platform to ensure that you retain the information so you remember it for your exams. With our ARE prep, our pass rates are 40% higher than the national average, and our members report passing in half the time of the national average. We use the same standards to develop our CSE exams, and we stand behind our work, which is why we offer our CSE guarantee. With our Pass the CSE guarantee, in the unlikely event that you don't pass your exams, we'll pay for you to retake your exam. And we're excited to announce that we've launched a brand new CSE course designed to help you pass the California Supplemental Exam in record time. You'll get everything you need to pass the CSE on your first try, including expert crafted California specific study materials, a practice exam that is as close to the real thing as you can get, customizable flashcards and quizzes, and a structured study plan customized to your exam date. You can join today at blackspectacles.com/CSE-pricing to take advantage of a 10% discount for the first 100 members of this course. And if you're using Black Spectacles through your firm, be sure to let your firm leadership know so they can unlock access for your entire team. And our next CSE Live will be on November 19th, where we'll be covering a CSE mock exam focused on contract development, project planning, construction documents, permitting, project bidding, and construction. You can go to blackspectacles.com/podcast/CSE-live to sign up. And we're going to be engaging exclusively on our Black Spectacles community. So head over to community.blackspectacles.com, and right at the top, you'll see we've pinned a thread called CSE Live, CSE Mock Exam, October 2025. If you have a question as we're going through CSE Live today, post your question there and we'll answer your questions. And everyone who posts in that thread today will be eligible to win a free Black Spectacles t-shirt. Literally all you have to do is go over to community.blackspectacles.com and say hi and you're registered. And of course, don't forget to stay tuned until the end of the episode to see if you've won. And with that, I'd like to welcome today's guest, Marissa Yee. In addition to working with us here at Black Spectacles, Marissa is an architect based in San Francisco. Welcome, Marissa.
Great, thank you. So to start us off today, I just want to reiterate, these mock exam questions are in the Schematic Design and Discretionary Approval knowledge area only. If you haven't already, check out our previous episodes on CSE Live, where we describe the various knowledge areas that are covered on the CSE. For today, these questions will really be covering things like agencies, building code, and CEQA. And those are really topics that you wouldn't have seen on the ARE, so it'll be great for us to look at these questions together and get a glimpse into some of those CSE specific questions. The other thing I want to mention generally about the CSE is that it only contains multiple choice questions. There are no case studies and there are no calculations. They don't actually even give you a calculator. And so with that, you'll see that these mock exam questions are formatted to reflect those qualities of the CSE. So let's head to the first question. The site for a Southern California project is 800 feet away from the shoreline. Which of the following jurisdictions will have permitting authority? We have several options. Option 1, California Coastal Commission. 2, Local Coastal Program. 3, Planning Department. 4, Building Department. Which combination will have permitting authority? Answer A includes 1 and 2. Answer B includes 3 and 4. C includes 2, 3, and 4. And D includes 1, 3, and 4. And our correct answer is C, 2 for Local Coastal Program, 3 for Planning Department, and 4 for Building Department. So as I just mentioned, the CSE will only have multiple choice questions. However, this is California Architects Board way of creating something similar to a select all that apply question, but in the format of a multiple choice question. So they'll give you 4 or 5 or so options as part of the question, and then they will have pre-selected arrangements of those options as the multiple choice A, B, C, and D. So the way that I typically like to tackle these questions is with my hand. I will just actually cover up the multiple choice options. I will only look at the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I will try to process on my own which of those 1, 2, 3, 4 options will have permitting authority. And I'll try on my own to figure out, okay, I think actually 3 and 4 are definitely correct, and 2 or 1 are probably correct. I'm not quite sure between 1 and 2 which are correct, and then I'll take off my hand, look at the answers, and solve it that way. So let's talk through this answer together. So to answer the question, we will need to remember what constitutes the coastal zone. Since the site is within 1,000 feet of the mean high tide, it is in fact within the coastal zone. So this means that the area's local coastal program will have permitting authority along with the planning and building department, which are standard local agencies. California Coastal Commission oversees the various local coastal programs, but typically does not have permitting authority. So if I were to come across this question on the exam, I probably would have seen planning department and building department as options 3 and 4 and said, you know, I'm pretty sure those would have permitting authority. So I'm going to look within answers A, B, C, and D for any options that include 3 and 4. So B, C, and D all include 3 and 4. So those would be the answers that I would keep my eye on, and I would probably eliminate answer A. Then between that, the remaining options are California Coastal Commission for 1, and number 2, local coastal program. That's where your knowledge about the coastal zone will come into play, where you'll need to realize because the project is within the coastal zone, the local coastal program will have permitting authority and not the California Coastal Commission. That would help you steer your answer towards C, which includes 2, 3, and 4.
Thanks, Marissa. Not seeing any questions on this one yet, but if you have any questions during today's session, you can go to community.blackspectacles.com, and we have a thread there called CSE Live, CSE Mock Exam October 2025. Go ahead and drop your question in there, and then I'll bring them up to Marissa. We're going to hop over to question number 2, but if you have any about question number 1, I can roll back to this one too. But thanks so much.
All right, next question. A project has been determined to require review under CEQA. After review, it is determined that the project indeed has significant environmental impacts. Which of the following would the lead agency prepare first? Would it be environmental impact report, notice of preparation, notice of completion, or notice of determination? Correct answer is B, notice of preparation. So this question will require knowledge of CEQA. I highly recommend reviewing a kind of decision tree or chart of the CEQA process because it's quite long and complex with a lot of variables. So just do a quick Google search, CEQA flowchart. That'll help you gain the knowledge you need to answer this question. So in specifics, if it's been determined that the project has significant environmental impacts, an EIR, also known as an environmental impact report, will need to be prepared. However, because the process to create an EIR can take months, a notice of preparation is filed first to confirm that the EIR process is beginning. Therefore, answer B, notice of preparation, is the correct answer, since the question is specifically asking which of the following would the lead agency prepare first. Now let's review some of the incorrect answers. So a notice of completion is filed when the EIR is complete. A notice of determination is filed after the EIR is complete to determine whether or not the project will be approved despite its environmental impacts. And while we've already determined that an environmental impact report will need to be prepared because it's saying that the project has significant environmental impacts, the EIR is not necessarily what's prepared first. You do the notice of preparation first and then start preparing the environmental impact report. So to summarize, check out a CEQA flowchart so you understand the various steps in the CEQA process, and also be comfortable with these definitions that we're seeing here. If this is your first time seeing these definitions, I know they sound, or these terms sound very similar, notice of preparation, notice of completion and notice of determination, they all sound very, very similar, but they do have distinct uses and they do have some notable differences between them. So be comfortable with those definitions and understanding where each of these slots into that CEQA flowchart.
Marissa, looks like no questions on this one. Oh, actually, just got one that just popped in,
Okay.
and that is notice of determination just a filler then?
Is it a filler? So notice of completion and notice of determination are very, very similar. The notice of completion is simply saying, hey, everyone, that EIR that's taking months for us to complete, it's done. That's it. That's all the notice of completion is. Whereas the notice of determination is really saying, okay, we reviewed the environmental impact report, and now we're going to make a determination of whether the project can move forward or not. So slightly different. You could kind of think of it as like the notice of completion, like for example, when you complete your last ARE, that would be similar to the notice of completion, but notice of determination would be like when you get your actual license. Hopefully that's a helpful scenario for you.
Sounds good, thanks. And with that, let's roll on to question number 3.
All right. So which of the following buildings have increased seismic design requirements that the architect should be aware of? And we have another one of these questions where it's similar to a select all that apply, but in CAB's format of multiple choice. So option 1 is hospital, option 2, daycare, option 3, community college, option 4, fire station, option 5, emergency communications dispatch center. Which combination will have increased seismic design requirements? Answer A includes 1, 2, 3, B includes 4 and 5, answer C includes 1 and 4, answer D includes 1, 3, 4, and 5. And our correct answer is D. 1 for hospital, 3 for community college, 4 for fire station, and 5 for emergency communications dispatch center. So hospital, the key to this question is really understanding which building types will be subject to those increased seismic design requirements. Hospitals, schools, and essential services buildings are the categories that all would have increased seismic design requirements in California. So let's break down specifically what buildings are covered in each of those categories. So we said hospitals, schools, essential services buildings. So we already see hospital as an answer there, so that's great. Schools are protected under the Field Act and include K through 12 schools as well as community colleges. However, daycares are not considered protected under the Field Act and do not have requirements for increased seismic design. So far, option 1 is looking good, hospital. Option 2, daycare, is not looking very good. Essential services buildings include fire stations and emergency communications dispatch centers. It also includes other buildings like police stations, but not hospitals specifically, and are protected under the Essential Services Building Seismic Safety Act. Options 4 and 5 are also looking quite good. This means that answer D, which includes hospital, community college, fire station, and emergency communications dispatch center, are all correct.
Thanks, Marissa. It looks like we do have one question on question number 1, so I'll roll back to that too. But if you have any questions on question number 3, go ahead and drop them in here. But I'm gonna roll back to question number 1, and this is for this one. What would make the last question on question number 1 be a California Coast Commission? So essentially, the only thing that we're missing out on this one is the California Coastal Commission.
So let me just repeat back the question so I understand.
Yeah.
When would option 1, California Coastal Commission, have permitting authority? Is that the question?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay. So local coastal programs are in place for various regions throughout California. Essentially, and no, I would not recommend trying to memorize exactly which areas of California do and don't have a local coastal program in place. But essentially, a local coastal program is when the regional government of an area that has a coastline, let's just come up with like a place in California that has a coastline, like Santa Cruz, for example. So let's say for Santa Cruz, that Santa Cruz regional government has worked with the California Coastal Commission to come up with coastal guidelines for protecting the Santa Cruz coastline. That would mean that the Santa Cruz regional government has a local coastal program in place. They have like a bunch of rules about the protection and use of the Santa Cruz coast. Great. Not every single, not the entire stretch of coast of, the stretch of coast of California is like quite long. And so there isn't necessarily a regional government for the entire length of the California coast that has a local coastal program. So even if, there's some portion of the coastline that is protected under a regional government, that regional government may not have necessarily worked with the California Coastal Commission yet to put a local coastal program in place for the official protection of that coastline. And so in the event that there is, some area of coastline that is not under the jurisdiction of a local coastal program, in that case, the California Coastal Commission would have permitting authority over that certain specific area of coast. So to summarize, local coastal programs are in place because the regional government of that coastal zone has put it in place. If that regional government does not have a local coastal program in place, then the California Coastal Commission would be the one that has permitting authority. Honestly, don't know if I can point to a specific coastline where that is the case, but that is the general rule, which is that the California Coastal Commission will review if there's no local coastal program in place. Okay, that was kind of a long-winded answer. Did that make sense?
Yeah, we already got a thank you from them too. So yeah,
okay.
Thanks so much for that.
Cool.
Sweet. And with that, we can roll on to question number 4.
All right. Which of the following best describes handrail requirements in the California Building Code? Our answers are A, handrails must extend 12 inches plus tread depth at bottom landings of stairs. B, handrails are required at sloped walkways. C, handrails must be 36 inches above the walking surface. D, handrails are not required at ramps where the change in level is less than 12 inches. And our correct answer is A, handrails must extend 12 inches plus tread depth at bottom landings of stairs. This is very clearly a code question where you would have needed to either have worked in California and been familiar with these code requirements or have read through the code in enough detail to understand the various handrail requirements. So answer A is an example of an area where the California Building Code is more stringent than the IBC. We do recommend reviewing the California Building Code for instances like these, especially in chapters that are specific to the CBC. Specifically, it would be good to look at Chapter 7A and Chapter 11B. And I'm going to say that, if you're practicing or if you're working in California or you're working on projects in California, it's much easier to become familiar with these code differences versus, you haven't really done a lot of work in California, but you're still trying to take the CSE and you're still trying to become licensed in California. You're just going to need a little bit more time looking at the code to understand these differences. And what this specifically is saying is that at the bottom landings of stairs, so that could either be like the actual landing on the floor or an intermediate or midpoint landing at the stair, that handrail is going to need to extend 12 inches horizontally, and also the depth of the tread of the stair. So if your depth of the stair is 11 inches, that means at those bottom landings, your handrail is going to need to extend 23 inches. Let's go over some of the incorrect answers. Handrails are not required at sloped walkways, which are 1 to 20 in slope and less steep than a ramp. So just because a sloped walkway is not a ramp, a handrail is not required, which makes B incorrect. For answer C, handrails can be 36 inches above the walking surface, but anything between 34 to 38 inches is also permitted. So the one word that makes C incorrect is that handrails must be 36 inches above walking surface. So it does not need to be precisely 36 inches above walking surface. It can be anywhere between 34 to 38 inches. And then lastly, answer D, handrails are required at ramps regardless of distance or height traveled, which means answer D is incorrect.
Thanks, Marissa. Looking like we don't have any questions on these so far. With that, we can roll on to our last question we have.
Question 5, our last question. Which of the following is a materials conservation and resource efficiency requirement under CalGreen? Answer A, 20% of building materials must be sourced within 100 miles of the project site. B, 65% of non-hazardous construction waste must be recycled. C, walk-off mats must be provided for 5 feet in the direction of travel at main entries. D, recycling bins must be provided for building occupants at all areas where trash bins are also provided. And our correct answer is B, 65% of non-hazardous construction waste must be recycled. So these questions are all surrounding CalGreen, similar to our recommendation for CBC. I would recommend looking at CalGreen. You know, it seems like a daunting document. CalGreen is really describing the code requirements. So yes, there's actual requirements that are surrounding sustainability within the state of California. Materials conservation and resource efficiency is one chapter within CalGreen. But yes, recommend looking at the CalGreen code specifically and becoming familiar with the various requirements in each chapter. There aren't a ton, so don't feel like, oh, in addition to reviewing the CBC, I also need to review this whole other code. CalGreen is much shorter than a lot of the other codes that you're familiar working with, so it's not a super large task to look through that CalGreen code and become familiar with those sections. So let's go over these answers. So although answer B pertains to the construction phase, it actually is a legitimate requirement under the materials conservation and resource efficiency section of CalGreen. And typically it's the contractor's responsibility to abide by and document this requirement. So basically the contractor at the end of construction will need to show that of all of the non-hazardous construction waste, because hazardous construction waste is dealt with separately. Anything that's non-hazardous, like maybe you were demoing the existing building and there are some wood studs that are part of this non-hazardous construction, at least 65% of the total non-hazardous waste will need to be recycled, and the contractor will need some sort of documentation that shows that that has happened. Let's go over some of the incorrect answers. So answer A sounds pretty legitimate, but it is not a current requirement under materials conservation and resource efficiency. Answer C pertains to LEED actually, but it is not yet a requirement for CalGreen. So C and A are both incorrect. And then answer D is partially correct. New buildings are required to provide recycling bins for occupants, but they don't need to provide recycling at every single location where a trash bin is also provided. The requirement is that you provide one recycling bin within the new building. So that sums up our mock exam questions for the CSE.
Great, thanks Marissa. I've got 2 questions on my end.
Okay.
And this one's kind of just about almost like the format for the CSE, but are California codes available to use during the exam?
They are not, which I know that sounds scary because I know on the ARE we're used to, you know, potentially pulling up the IBC during that's already provided as part of the case study and being able to reference it throughout the general section of the exam. Unfortunately, they do not provide the CBC for you, but what I will say is they're not going to be asking you anything that you would have needed to, you know, have done like a deep memorization of. Like, for example, I'm just going to come up with something in the IBC. Like, okay, table 508.4 in the IBC is that chart where you have the occupancies down the column and occupancies across the top. And that chart is telling you what the fire separation requirements are between 2 mixed occupancies. And then let's say you're doing an A type and a B type. You line up the A and B occupancy, find that intersection within the table, and that tells you you need, let's just say, 1 hour of separation between your A and B occupancy. That level of question would not come up on the CSE. That level of question where you would reasonably need to look at the code to answer it would not come up on the CSE. If we can go back to the previous question, Patrick, is a pretty good indicator of the level that you would need to be comfortable with for memorization of topics for the California Building Code. So if anyone, you know, is not quite familiar with the California Building Code, but is taking the CSE anyways, I know these look daunting, but if you have been working in California for some time and you have been, you know, doing your construction documents, answer A should be a pretty standard thing that you would have known based on, doing stair detailing sheets or doing an accessibility review of your documents. And so there shouldn't be any questions on the CDC that would require you to reference it. And if there are items that you are being required to memorize, it should be fairly easy, low-hanging fruit items, such as, I'm going to come up with another example, such as knowing like the clear floor space that's required at lavatories, for example. Hopefully it's things that you've already come across in your day-to-day work. Okay,
Gotcha.
That was also a lot of talking. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, I think that does. I just want to check too. I feel like you just answered this too, but this is kind of two kind of questions off this of A, how much do we need to know about CalGreen? And then also, do we need to review both residential and non-residential CalGreen documents?
Oh, that's a good question. Only review non-residential. I don't think there would be, even for the California Building Code, there's also like a residential version. I would not, flip through it, but I would not spend time really doing a deep dive into anything residential, any sort of residential code. I would stick to the commercial. And then how much do you need to know CalGreen? Yes, thank you for going back to this question. I would say this level of answer is something that you should be familiar with. Like if you're thinking about if there's 100 questions on the exam, there really shouldn't be that many questions specifically on CalGreen. So I'm hesitant to give out too much information about, what percentage of questions would be on CalGreen or what percentage of questions would be related to the California Building Code. But if you look at the overall, knowledge areas that are tested on the exam, and you look at how much is dedicated to schematic design and discretionary approvals, I think it was like 30 to 35% of the exam is based on this one knowledge area alone, but it does include a lot of topics like CalGreen, like CEQA, like CBC, and agencies. So it's mixed in with a bunch of other stuff. So I feel like you should still be able to pass the exam even if you got every single CalGreen question incorrect.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was about to say too that this mock exam was focused on what was it, schematic design and discretionary approval too. So that's why we also had these type of questions, and then we'll be covering the other topics next month in our other mock exam. But Marissa, with that looks like that is all of our questions that we have for today. Marissa, it's been such a pleasure to have you today. And truly, thank you so much for helping to support the architecture community.
Thanks for having me.
If you're joining us for the first time, Black Spectacles is a leader in ARE prep. At Black Spectacles, we work with learning scientists and architects to ensure you're studying the right content and that you retain it so you pass on the first try. And we're excited to announce that we just launched a brand new CSE course designed to help you pass the California Supplemental Exam in record time. You'll get everything you need to pass the CSE on your first try, including expert crafted California specific study materials, a practice exam that is as close to the real thing as you can get, customizable flashcards and quizzes, and a structured study plan customized to your exam date. You can join today at blackspectacles.com/CSE-pricing to take advantage of a 10% discount for the first 100 members, and that discount is automatically applied at checkout. And if you're using Black Spectacles through your firm, be sure to let your firm leadership know so they can unlock access for your entire team. Our next CSE Live is going to be on November 19th, where we'll be covering a CSE mock exam focused on contract development, project planning, construction documents, permitting, project bidding, and construction. You can go to blackspectacles.com/podcast/CSE-live to sign up. And also we'll have the recording of this episode on YouTube and your favorite podcast player available tomorrow, and you'll receive that as an email also tomorrow too. And congratulations to Janelle.Dixon. You posted on our community today and you just won a free Black Spectacles t-shirt. I'll reach out to you via email to get your size and shipping information, so we'll be in touch soon. And just a reminder, if you'd like to be eligible to win a free Black Spectacles t-shirt, you just have to post a question you have about our featured topic in our community during our next CSE Live. And our community is always active, so be sure to poke around and see what your peers are up to and asking about. And finally, be sure to take our survey, which you'll find in your email after this episode, and share any suggestions you have on how we can make CSE Live better. I promise we read every word that you write and use them to tune our next episodes. Thanks for tuning in.